Hi there, Mulibwanji. Welcome to the first Think Like an Editor training for journalists. My name is Stefan Lanfer. That's me up front, presenting at a conference for communications professionals. I am a writer, a communications strategist, and in 2021-22, a U.S. Fulbright Scholar in Lusaka, Zambia, where I am at Evelyn Hone College at the School of Media and Information Studies. Coming out of a project with the news team at the college's radio station, Hone FM 94.1. Here's the big question we're going to explore together today. Do you, as a journalist, ever write something, and by the time it goes on air or into print, you wonder, did I even write that? The editing has been so heavy, you hardly recognize it. How do you keep that editing light? How do you keep the final copy in your voice? How do you protect your judgment as a journalist and your skill to identify and share the important stories of the day? The ones that help your audience understand what is happening, what it means, and what they can do about it, so that because of your journalism, your readers, your listeners are wiser, and they are empowered with news they can use. Today we're going to talk about the key questions an editor asks when they look at your copy. The same questions you can ask yourself as you write, to keep their editing of your work light, to showcase your skill as a journalist, and to put yourself at the front of the line for the next big, interesting, important story assignment, or the next opening on the editorial team. For that, you've got to think like an editor. And to think like an editor, the first question to ask is, what's the game? It's a question I first heard from my mentor, colleague, and friend, Eric Brown, whose answers to that question as a strategic communications consultant to foundations and NGOs led him to introduce himself and his work with a story about a chicken. It's a good story, actually, a memorable story, a story with a purpose and with clarity about who his audience is. And that's how he is able to connect his chicken story to their most urgent strategic questions. So, what's the game? It's an acronym to help you remember 4 key questions, starting with, what's the goal? What do I want my audience to think, to know, to feel, or to do? And to answer that, I need to ask, who is my audience? And here's a pro tip. The general public is not an audience. To be effective, you've got to be specific. Is it young people? Is it older people? Is it students, unemployed adults, underemployed youth, elected leaders, business owners, you name it? It could be more than one, but it needs to be at least one specific audience. Who is your story most important for? Once you've got that, the next question is, for your audience, what is the most important message? What are the key takeaways? Answer that, and you know what your headline needs to be. You know the lead, how to hook your readers or listeners or viewers. Without clarity about message, you can start anywhere, go anywhere, and it doesn't matter. Your audience is not going with you. Neither will your editor. So now that you've got your goal, your audience, your message, at last it comes to execution. How will you get your message out to your target audience to reach your goal? Is it audio? Is it text? Is it video, pictures? Is it social media, or a combination of all these things? The most strategic decision is dictated by your answers to these questions. You need to go where your audience is already. Maybe your choice of execution is already set. You're a radio journalist and you're writing copy for radio. You're a TV journalist writing for TV. You're a print or online journalist writing for that form. Your medium won't change, but how you execute within the constraints of that medium absolutely must. Getting clear about the game makes all the difference. Let's look together at an example. A piece of copy I got from a journalist about the news of the day about COVID-19. And you'll have to bear with me as I read some of it. The Ministry of Health says Zambia has in the last 24 hours recorded 384 confirmed COVID-19 cases out of 6,811 tests conducted, 8 new confirmed deaths, and 542 patients have been discharged from 23 facilities and 519 from community management. Let me stop there. I think you get the idea. This is only 124 words. It's not that many, but it is painful to read. I'm sure it's painful to listen to as well. As an editor, as I read this, I'm asking, what's the goal? I don't know. Who's the audience? I can't tell. I'm asking, what's the key message? What's the story here? Again, I have no idea. And the execution? It's just a lot of information. It's new information. Sure, it was just released today, but that doesn't make it news. What does it take to turn information into news? It takes journalism. And that raises another fundamental question you need to ask yourself as a journalist. Are you a journalist or an information conveyor belt? It's a fundamental difference. This piece we just looked at was just information, and the news platform was just a conveyor belt, selecting information from a prepared statement and passing it along, abbreviated, but passing it along verbatim to the audience. And the problem with information like that compared to news, it lacks context and meaning. What are the trends? Which way are things headed? Should I be concerned? Should I feel hopeful? What do I do? It's also boring. It's hard to take in, hard to remember, and altogether it's overwhelming. I read it or hear it and I feel paralyzed, powerless to do anything. Contrast that with news. News gives me context and meaning. News is sticky. It tells a story, it hooks me in and holds my attention, I remember it. And news gives me insight into how to think, how to feel about what I'm hearing, what I can do in response, and that makes it empowering for me as a listener or a reader. So how do we turn this piece of information into news people can use? We come back to our 4 key questions. What's the game? Based on the copy we just looked at, as an editor, I can't answer any of these questions. And that means I've got to go back to the original source, in this case to the full original statement from Zambia's Ministry of Health. Here's the start of it. It goes on to almost 800 words. I won't read it to you. But just know that as an editor, as I read it, I'm asking myself, well, first off, I'm asking, why am I having to do this? This is the job of the journalist. That is absolutely part of my thinking, part of my assessment of this journalist's capabilities and potential. So now that I've accepted the fact this needs my attention and time, I commit to it. And as I read, I'm asking myself, who's the audience? What's the message? Where in all this information is the story? And as I ask myself those questions, here are the kinds of things that jump out to me from the text that weren't even included in that first draft I got from the journalist. The situation is greatly improved. That's news about change. We're seeing reducing trends in hospitalizations and deaths. That's more change. But the outbreak is still widespread, and the Delta variant that is driving outbreaks globally is also circulating here. As I read this material, I'm thinking about one potential target audience. It's students, parents, and families, and for them, I find the important news that schools are scheduled to open to grades that have not begun in-person learning yet. And for grades that have already opened, we've seen no adverse incidents. There's a whole set of information and possible storylines related to vaccinations and how that work is progressing. There's a message to the business audience and possible storyline about the economy. And at the very end of the story, I find the statement that actually makes it clear to me who the most important audience is right now and what the headline should be, and this is what it says. As much as the COVID-19 situation in the country has improved over the past 2 weeks, we urge members of the public not to drop their guard. The key audience is community members. It's not public health experts or statisticians who need to know the exact numbers on the exact day. It's people who are following the COVID story. It's Zambians who are worried about the COVID situation and who want to understand, which way is this thing headed? Do I need to be alarmed? Do I have reason to be hopeful? What can I do? So where do we land? With that audience in mind, here's the headline. Positive trends, but COVID is still with us. And our opening is this. The Ministry of Health has said, the local COVID-19 situation continues to be encouraging with sustained reductions in positivity rates, hospitalizations, and deaths for 3 consecutive weeks. We still publish some of the day's numbers, but now those numbers had context. They helped tell the story. They weren't just overwhelming bits of information, and we closed by echoing the key message, a reminder to adhere to the 5 golden rules and to get vaccinated as COVID-19 is still with us. So remember, if you want your writing to get noticed for the right reasons and to have impact, then you want to think like an editor. Ask yourself, what's the gain? And you'll be on your way. Thank you so much. I hope you found this to be helpful, encouraging, and useful. This is Stefan Lanfer signing out. I welcome your reactions, questions, and ideas and requests for future sessions. You can reach me by email at sglanfer@gmail.com, and on Twitter I am at Stefan Lanfer. Thanks. Tizaonana.